broken legs way far away from my heart. So I knew in that moment there's no sulking or pouting or anything like that, feeling sorry for myself. Immediately cheering on my teammates.
There it is! And for the first time since 2009 and 7th overall, the Tigers can say, we are champions.
If I had to trade a broken leg for a national championship, I'd do it 10 times. I'd do it 10.
Hello, welcome back to Like-Minded Servants with me, Cecil Graves, where leaders and entrepreneurs come to be better every day. In my last episode, if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, it was on mental strength. So make sure when you're done with this one or you get time, make sure to go back to that one. It was super impactful. But I want to get right to our guest today. We got Alex Milazzo, LSU Tiger, recent College World Series champion, baseball superstar, and a stellar human. I'm glad to have him on the show today. I want to give y'all a perspective of, I was really thinking who I wanted to be my first guest, who I wanted to have on here, who was a like-minded servant. And it just, God aligned this thing right up from the World Series happening to how that third game happened to him, which we're going to get into today. To me, we're sitting on a stage where I listened to Alex share a testimony right here after the game. Was it the weekend after or two weekends after?
It was the weekend after.
Weekend after, got up here and shared a testimony, and I just said right then, that's my guy. That's who I want to have as the first guest. That's who's going to impact people. And he can tell you after it was over, I went to him, he was taking his pictures and stuff, but I put a pen in his hand. And I basically told him if baseball didn't work out, I'll hire you. Like I want this guy in my life. He was super cool. After that, we had a conversation. We went to Superior Grill on government, and I listened to his story. And man, if I could have got that on tape, got that on film for you guys to hear it, I hope it's everything that it was that day for you guys, so that you hear what I heard, the struggles in his life, the failing forward in his life, how he looked at it, the people that he surrounded himself with that were there for him at an early age. And with that said, I want Alex to start us off today with before baseball, right? We're all about baseball. We've seen the win and everything, but how did we get there before baseball, Alex?
Yeah, I would say it's I'm not any different than most kids that grow up. But I guess you could say it was a definitely unique childhood. I had the opportunity of growing up under two parents that were ultra competitors, great coaches, great mentors to many other kids. And I grew up around teams throughout my entire childhood, whether that was my dad coaching youth football before me and my brother even started playing, or my mom coaching me in t-ball, when I was 5-6 years old. So I've always grown up around sports teams, and I always seemed to have a ball in my hand, growing up. And I had parents that invested a lot of time and effort into me growing up. Whatever I wanted to do, they were 100% invested. Whether I was taking a drama class, outside of sports, whether it was a drama class, it's, hey, you're going to be the best at this. Let us know what we need to do to help you. So, yeah, I mean, when you grow up like that, sports is just something you kind of do every day. It's something you love to do. And, at a young age, I learned how to compete just in the backyard with me and my brother. Whether that was playing a backyard football game, backyard wiffle ball game.
Did y'all do the same sports coming up? Was anything different?
Yeah, so we both played. I remember my dad would coach him in basketball. My dad coached him in baseball. My dad coached him in football. My dad kind of had this thing where it was like, he would watch other coaches do it, and he was like, they're just, kind of going through the motions in it. And he really invested into coaching us and doing it the right way. And same thing with my mom. Opened up a cheer gym here in Zachary to help my sister out, but my mom was a college softball player. So unlike most moms, she was throwing me BP in the backyard, playing catch every day with me in the backyard, throwing a football with me, especially while my dad was finishing up coaching my brother before he got into high school. And, something that really pops out to me, I was, my brother's team was 13, 14 years old, and I'm 6 years younger than him. And as about a 6, 7-year-old kid, I'm taking ground balls and fly balls with my brother's team. In fact, my dad broke my nose. I'll never forget that. I was standing in line, and he kind of top spun a line drive to outfield, and I turned around, bam, broke my nose.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, very thankful for my parents and all the time they spent with me. Growing up at such an early age, and just all that time they invested in me.
It helped give you that competitive edge, but they modeled it for you, is what it sounds like, because both of them were athletes.
No doubt. Something that I often talk about, playing college baseball, guys will ask me, hey man, like, how'd you do it? How'd you get to this point? Or what did you do differently? And, something most people might not know about me was I tried to quit baseball when I was like 9, 10 years old. I used to, I remember getting so angry going to baseball practices because I loved football. And at the time I was playing like shortstop, center field. And I remember just getting so bored with baseball and always fighting with my dad about going to practices. Man, I don't want to do it. And it was kind of something I just did, as a pastime till football season. And
so you were doing it kind of to appease your dad, and you just kept
going.
Kind
of to have something to do until football season rolled around. And then it was, I want to say it was my mom's idea to be like, hey, why don't we put him at catcher? There's not very many good catchers at this age. Most kids would get on first base, they're at second base next pitch, then third base. So when I was probably 9 years old, they stuck me behind home plate, and I started catching, and I found it was closer to football than any other position I was playing, and I fell in love with it. You're getting beat up back there. It's a tough position to play. And yeah, just kind of ran with it, man. And here we are today.
And what, when I think of probably what it took for you to get there, being that our church is right across the street and you see this ball happening all the time, like from Little League, from T-ball, did you transition into tournament ball? Did you play just during the summers?
Yeah, so
what did that look like?
Yeah, a lot of time spent traveling state to state, tournament to tournament. A lot of times we're packed down in a Suburban, driving 10, 12, 15, 16 hours to go play. And my brother did it. I did it. So it was ultra competitive. And my parents ensured that we were on a competitive team, and that we were playing the highest level of competition to prepare us for the next level. And, that's something that not only prepared me in life, but on the ball field as well. You learn how to compete at a young age. You learn how to deal with failure at a young age. And I think that's something that was super important. Looking back on it, that was something that was really important for me, was learning how to deal with failure at a young age and learning how to combat that. And it's not just roll over and give up,
Yeah.
Hey, I might have failed right here. Now let's go back and look at it and say, how did I fail? Now what can we do to combat that and come out on the other side next time? Right. And I think that's something that at a young age was instilled in me from my parents, and that just goes into life after baseball.
Yeah, it's applicable everywhere.
Correct.
And you see it with so many kids today, they're missing that part, but you even found it in tournament ball. And with tournament ball, you probably recognize it more now, but when during tournament ball, was it 15, was it 16, when was it that it hit you that, hey, man, this is my thing?
Yeah.
And I think I want to turn it up another notch. I want to level up, take it to the next level, and really hone in on that being your sport. When these kids today, like, give them some kind of inclination, like they put in the work, they put in the reps, they should feel that failure because they learn from that. But at what point did you transition to go, I want to go big. I want to go to college and play baseball?
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer kind of two parts of that question. I think going back to what we were just talking about is I think sports is something super important for youth, kids in high school. It gives you that sense of you're on a team, you're being held accountable for actions, and just like going into life, I'm gonna be a dad one day. I'm gonna have kids and a family and a wife dependent upon me. At a young age, kids learned, hey, my teammates are dependent upon me. Like, I can't mess up or it hurts my team.
Right.
So I think that's something important that sports brings. Kind of takes that selfishness out of things. Every person in this world has a little bit of selfishness, and they want to do good themselves. But, when you're put on a sports team, you have to be there for the guys around you. It's not just about yourself anymore. And I think that's something that's super important. But going along with the next question is, growing up, I didn't really have dreams of being this MLB player, pro football player. Obviously, I wanted to play college football. I thought it was pretty cool going into Death Valley and watching the Tigers play. But my biggest dream was being the best high school player I could be at Zachary. I had the opportunity to watch my brother go through that program, guys older than him go through that program, and I was just fascinated with Zachary sports. It's not many times that at high school games, crowds and stands are filling up to watch high school sports, but it was happening there. And, I was watching how guys were playing, just hard-nosed players, whether that be in football or baseball. I would say I was so fixated on being the best high school player I could be. And I think that's something that's getting lost in sports today is, we talked about travel ball. It's almost becoming a money racket today where people are just in it for the money or the video. Yeah. And I think something that's getting lost is taking pride in playing for your hometown on that hometown high school team. And I think that's getting lost a little bit today. And, when people ask me, when did you know you wanted to go to college? I didn't. I just wanted to be the best high school player I could be, and my parents prepared me for being the best high school player. They prepared me to walk in as a freshman and be prepared to play on that stage. And what that ultimately did, looking back on it, was it prepared me for college.
Yeah.
It put me in a position to get recruited to be successful at the high school level, then on at the collegiate level. And hat tip to Zachary as well for the program they have and the coaches they have brought in. I can honestly say, walking in as a freshman in college, I was one of the most prepared players on that team when it came to practices. The grind,
on the maturity level with the sport.
Correct. The grind on your schedule. Mom and dad aren't there waking you up anymore. Mom and dad aren't fixing you dinner at night. You got to take accountability.
Yeah.
And that going through that and being so invested in high school and having great coaches and great parents.
It sounds like you're saying, on those ones that have that question, like the elephant would be LSU baseball when you're a teenager, right? But how do we eat that elephant?
Correct.
We've got to perform at that level we're at. We're that age where we're at. We got to do the best with what we have where we're at that time, knowing that could happen, that goal could happen. So what I hear you say is, I took high school, I took it serious, and I did what I could at that level and focused on that because I knew the other would happen if it was supposed to happen, if God wanted it.
Yeah, I think something that's super important is, looking back on it now, I'm thankful for it, but, surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded as you, that want the same thing as you. And, when you do that, you ultimately you're not pulling dead weight. It's, hey, everybody's coming with me. Like
the SEALs are carrying the log up the beach.
Yeah,
together.
it's just like, Navy SEAL training. It's like, you're all carrying the boats, you're all carrying the logs, you're in it together. It's like one big unit, and when you surround yourselves with people like that, it helps a lot, and it makes the failure a lot easier.
Well, that was so impactful to me as Superior is when you told me that, like when you're relating that at your age, that you saw that before you're 20, now after you're in your 20s, your early 20s, and you just recently had a birthday. Happy birthday again.
Thank you.
I just think it's cool that you recognize that now, that it's easier to do life and to get better with like-minded people instead of fighting life so much. I don't know. I just thought that was cool. The other thing I heard a lot of what you told me is you didn't ever talk about self. You never focused on Alex. You always focused on other people. And two that stood out to me, and I know I like saying Nani better than I do your grandmother's name, because I think it's cool, because that's how you talked to me about her. And you talked about car rides. I want to go back to the car rides. Was it to school?
It was to school every morning. So
let's go back there.
Yeah. So my mom, school teacher at Zachary. My aunt, school teacher at Zachary. My other aunt, school teacher at Zachary. And we all live right here, whether it's in Slaughter, Zachary. We're all close, very tight-knit family. And so my nanny, she worked at Merle Norman, which was a store in Zachary, and she just did it just to do it. They
sell hunting supplies, right?
Well, it's actually a jewelry store. If it was a hunting supplies store, I'd be there every day. She'd probably still be working there just for me. No, so she took that job, and before I get into my story with Nani, and what was cool about her job there was she would pick me up some days. My mom owned a cheer gym, so I'd be no teenage boy wants to be stuck at a cheer gym, right? So Nani would come pick me up. We'd go get lunch or dinner together, I guess you could say. And if I was at that store, it was pretty cool to see the amount of women that would walk in there, and she would impact their lives. Like I would sit in the back room doing homework or whatever, getting ready for ball practice in the afternoon, and I remember hearing all these women pouring their life stories out to her, and that had a big impact on me because she touched so many people just in a jewelry store in Zachary, Louisiana. And I don't know why, but I used to ask her as a kid. I was like, Nani, why are these people telling you this? She's like, I don't know why. God put me here, and I'm telling you, hundreds of people would come through the store over months, and it seemed like every person that came in there was pouring their life story out to Nani,
wanting her to help her. Wanting her to help
not
them.
Knowing her, she never met these people, and they're sitting there talking to her about all this, and it goes back to car rides, and Nani's kind of that person I talk to, and my biggest problems are, through failure, good times, bad times. She's my go-to. She's my phone call.
Yeah.
But going back to growing up with her, so she would take us all to school. I lived out in Ethel. My mom taught at Zachary, so we go to Zachary. And the buses didn't come that far in the morning. No kid wants to ride the bus, let's be honest. So Nani was taken. It started off at just my older brother, and then I came along, and I remember, and then eventually all my cousins, her grandchildren came behind, and she would take us all to school. Like my mom or their parents would drop us off at her house, and she'd fix us breakfast in the morning, take us to school. Each kid went to a different school. A lot of times she was stopping off at 4 different schools, and it was. I didn't realize it then, but it was pretty impactful what she was doing in those car rides to school. She would talk a lot about life, and something that had a huge impact on me was she taught me how to pray in those car rides. On those rides when her car was, she even got a minivan at one point to bring us all to school, you know. Something that was super impactful for me was, and like I said, I didn't realize it then, but I do now, was her teaching us how to pray. And we prayed every day. Every time we went to school, we prayed as a car, and each grandkid would pray. She would, all right, today's your day to pray. We'd go through that prayer. And that was something that was really cool for me looking back on it now, was the impact that she had. And, I mean, a lot of times she was fixing problems for me. Like, I'd find myself spilling out problems I got going on in life, and we pray about it. And, you know, when I'm spilling out those problems, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? And she was just there listening, man. And I think everybody needs a Nani in their life.
You were like the ladies at the Merle Norman.
Yeah, that's right.
Coming to Nani.
That's right. And she even said she didn't do that job for money. She didn't need a job.
Right.
But it's something she did because those opportunities presented themselves, and she felt like that was her calling at the time, and that's what she did. And looking back on it, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and she's been that she's just like taking time and being intentional. It's showing you to be intentional with people, and she's doing it in a way loving you, loving everybody that was in the car, getting a minivan to make sure she's got enough room.
Yeah, and it's like I talked about earlier. It's that selflessness, man, and putting others before yourself. I'm sure a lot of mornings she didn't want to wake up at 6 a.m. to get us from our parents and cook us breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. I'm sure there was many mornings that she didn't feel like doing that, but she did it.
Wow.
And super thankful for her.
Well, let's get into your dad. Now, your dad, you've talked about him a lot. You've talked about him, how he brought up you and your brother. He did all that and invested in you. And then when it came time to slow you down and deter you from going to Major League Baseball, what he invested in you, you responded in a respectful way. Can you kind of talk through that?
Yeah. So after the World Series, pretty dead set on going to the draft. And, we talk about it a lot. I talked about it at my testimony that I said, going through some tough times or whatever. I remember having a moment where it was like, all right, God, I don't know where you're going to lead me, but I'm a follow blindly. And this is no different than that. It just happened a few weeks down the road, or a month later, 2 months later. So obviously break my leg at College World Series, and was having a pretty good season, and expected to go, and pretty dead set on going. I had talked to teams, and the leg had a setback that I didn't. It had a bigger impact on the draft than I thought it would. Teams expect you to go out and be ready to play right away, and I wasn't. So I had that setback. Still had offers throughout the draft, just money-wise not ideal. And, me and my parents, mom and dad, we sat down and talked for a long time and said, hey, it's just not the right time to go. And, I remember my mom and dad looking at me, and they were like, if I told you as a 12-year-old kid, hey, you get to go back to college and play for the LSU Tigers, would you take it? I was like, 100%.
That's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. No doubt. And, so God works in many different ways, and I thought it was very important for me to follow, and kind of, at first when you got your mind set on something and you're like, this is what I'm doing, and then that gets altered, takes you down a different road, your first reaction was normally anger.
Right.
You're getting mad. You don't know why things are happening. Instead, I had my parents there to kind of take me a step back and remember, be thankful for where you're at. Like, if the worst thing that happens to you is you're going back to play for the LSU Tigers, how bad is it?
Pretty
you
good.
know, yeah, it's a pretty good situation. I talked to 12-year-old me about that, and I'd be all over it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was kind of a super impactful moment they had on me, in a moment where I didn't understand why things were happening, why my leg was broken. But then you kind of transition into, like we talked about at Superior, going back to LSU as a older guy, as a veteran that's been through some things. Now it's my turn to impact those underclassmen or guys following me,
Right.
or following in my footsteps. You know, they're where I was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can take a situation like that and, you know, you can roll it, like I said, learning
two
in
ways.
youth sports.
Yeah.
You can roll over and pout about it, or you can say, hey, I'm going to make the most of it. And for me, going back, I had the opportunity to impact a lot of guys on the team, a lot of guys around the LSU community in the Baton Rouge area. So, yeah, super thankful for that opportunity and looking forward to it. You know, looking forward to being able to help people, help younger players, you know, go through times that I was going through that I might not have had anybody to help me through.
Right. And all of this is still is not on Alex. Your key is here, you focused on everybody else, how my story can impact them. And now it can impact them because you've lived it. You're like a general going back for this final year with LSU. You didn't just get that injury, right? As far as your leg, you had injuries leading up to this, which you look back at a lot of things with Nani and your dad and your upbringing, and you're reflecting on so much. I know you've got to reflect on this injury going, man, I always wondered. I never knew your teeth got knocked down your throat. When you told me that, I was like, how? You know? So let's get into that a little bit. Like, when people are griping because why is this happening to me, they don't realize that it's preparing them for something. And now it sounds like you do. You understand that, even that terrible time. Of how did it happen? Tell me again on the teeth of the ball.
Yeah. So let's see. I would have been 14 years old, and I was a freshman at Zachary High School, and it was I was starting on the varsity as a freshman, and it was I believe our third game of the year, third or fourth game, something like that, and it was just a weird time of day, and pitcher threw a ball high and inside, and I tried to get out of the way of it and lost it in the background, and just ate it right there, square in the kisser. Yeah, and so that happened. Got a pretty cool picture out of it.
Yeah,
but you know, I did.
Pictures.
Yeah. I didn't realize anything bad had happened. I was actually got hit, fell down, got up, started heading to first base, and the other team's Dutchtown's coach, Coach Shake Snyder, who I, got to know through this whole situation. He kept reaching out. Great guy, great coach. He actually laid me down on the field and like, no, you're not going anywhere. And I think I kind of blacked out for a little bit. And when I woke up, it was like coaches, parents, you open your eyes, everybody's looking at you. I'm like, yo, what's going on? Like, what's happening here?
Is this heaven?
Yeah. It was EMS showed up with the ambulance and stuff. And, I didn't realize anything was bad had happened. Like, I didn't think it was, just thought I had a bloody lip. And it wasn't until my mom looked at me and was like, it's just your teeth. We can fix that. It's no big deal. And I remember my mouth was open and I went to like swallow and close my mouth. I remember the whole front row of my teeth like crunching in the back of my tongue, like in the back of my throat. Yeah, so what had happened was the whole maxilla, where that bone is that holds your teeth, your top jaw, that got crushed in the hamburger meat. They found one of my front teeth at home plate like days later, and then so got rushed to the hospital. man, they probably had enough stitches to lace up 2 or 3 pairs of shoes in my mouth. And I went through probably like a 3 to 4 hour oral surgery where the doctor actually like put his hand in my mouth and pulled everything back forward. Ended up losing some teeth in it. And, but it was a long road ahead. Like, I didn't realize it at the time. And, for being that age and somebody losing their teeth at 14 years old and going to school with no front teeth, like, I thought I handled it pretty well. Always been laid back, and it's kind of how my parents raised me. Like, you just kind of let problems roll off your shoulders, and you don't really worry about much. You don't worry about stuff you can't control. You control what you can control, and that was something big going through that. But, yeah, it ended up being like 9 major surgeries later and thousands of dollars invested into my mouth. And
until recently, that was at 16, right?
I was at 14 years old.
14?
I didn't get my mouth fully fixed until I was probably like 21 years old probably.
That's just from the growth and them making adjustments.
Oh, yeah. I had to wait. To get new bone in my. I had to get new bone in my mouth. All the bone deteriorated because it was just shattered everywhere. So I had no bone. I had to get new bone implants. Had to get titanium post implants. So yeah, had to go through all of that, and then after it's kind of cool. Like, any injuries I've had since then, it's almost like that mouth injury prepared me for anything. It's like, man, this is not as bad. I was eating baby food for 9 months. This is not bad at all.
I can still
like,
eat.
yeah. Yeah, like, I kid you not, I was eating baby food for probably like 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
Couldn't chew any solid food.
Back to Gerber.
Yeah, that I was literally eating. I found out the baby food is not very good.
No.
There's only one thing that tastes like apples that was good.
Which ones you like?
Yeah.
But you, after that, and then you told me you did some therapy with a player. I think you had, a knee surgery?
So, yeah, let's see. It would have been my junior year. Yeah, my junior year. First game of the season, Cade Beloso, we were in our huddle, and he blew out. He landed on somebody's foot when he jumped up in a huddle.
Celebrate. Y'all do something on like third base?
Yeah, it was a pregame celebration, and he kind of just jumped like not even high off the ground and landed on somebody's foot, blew his ACL out. He was in that starting lineup, blew his ACL out.
Wow.
And we fast forward, we were playing Texas. I injured my MCL. So Cade had surgery, and that hadn't even started rehab process well. After I hurt my MCL against Texas in Minute Maid, which is the Astro Stadium, I injured my MCL, and they were probably thinking 4 to 6 weeks I'll be back. So I rehab 4 to 6 weeks, try to come back, re-injure it. Like, didn't even make it out the bullpen I was starting that midweek game to try. It was my first game back. I was starting, getting the bullpen. One bad move, boom, sets me back another 4 to 6 weeks. Rehab it, try to come back, boom, re-injure it again. Finally, I decided to have surgery, go in there and fix the problems. So I go in, have surgery on my left knee, and we stayed with the team, throughout the rest of the season. Obviously, we missed only got to play like 9 games. He didn't even get to play one. So, and as an athlete, you prepare so much for a season, especially in college. You prepare so much, invest so much time and effort into preparing for a season, going through a fall, preseason stuff. Countless of hours you invest, and then it just gets ripped away that quick, and it can have a major impact on you mentally, physically, and it did. I'm not going to lie, it did. Was a lot of people's biggest fears is investing everything into something and falling short.
Right.
So it's no different. That's what athletes fear the most, are injuries, and it's just part of the game. And they always happen, but going through that rehab process, it was very cool how it was set up, because I had one of my best friends in life, Cade Beloso, going through rehab. I was going through rehab, and anybody that's going through rehab, it's very tough. And there's a lot of days when you don't feel like it. It could be 2 weeks in, you're like, I'm not getting any better. No way I'm going to return to my normal self. I know we talked about your accident, and I'm sure you went through rehab, and it's not fun.
Yeah, none of it.
Yeah, at times it's tough to see the light at the end of the tunnel,
Right.
But having a guy like that, and it was I found it was very easy to kind of get emotional, angry, and you're not going home the same person that, you normally are.
Right.
And so we talked about it a lot, and having somebody to lean on, and, we kind of talked about, hey, no matter what goes on at the field, and this is past injury, whether, we're playing and we have a bad day at the field, no matter what happens at the field, as soon as I walk out those doors, it's done. It's behind me. It's history. I'm going to go home the normal person I am. I'm not going to let this game affect my mentality in life or how I am as a normal person, and having somebody like that to lean on at the time was pretty
right
cool.
by your side.
Yeah, somebody going through exactly what you're going through and knowing that, hey, it sucks. Like, this is not fun.
Right.
And watching somebody go through the grind, and I was going through the grind, we kind of just really leaned on each other.
Would you say it built, in a previous episode, I talked about mental strength, right? Like really building your mental strength. Like I use Tiger Woods as an example, that he can keep going back out there with all that mental abuse from the crowd, from actual his mentality on things to keep pushing. And the thing it kept referring to in the definition, if you go pull up mental strength, it talks about athletics and sports and how you guys, the successful ones, keep going. And they get mentally stronger through those mentally challenging lessons, that just like what you've gone from teeth to leg to even when you were little, your dad, hitting you in the nose, all these types of things. You wondered, that 3-letter word that's so dangerous, why? Why me? Why? But you kept pushing through it. And I think that's what an important takeaway from, the younger viewers at home is, just because it hurts doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean you need to stop. It's building mental strength in you. I mean, look how young you are. You're mentally stronger than, 9 out of 10 guys your age from this experience.
Something that's super important with that too is, never taking a step back and saying, why me? Instead, taking that step forward and saying, why not me? Why not me? Like somebody else might not be able to handle this. I know I can, though.
Right.
And that's just having that kind of callous in your mind of, like.
Did you develop, what made you think that way? Did you finally hear, somebody get up in front of you, like Nick Saban's so good about putting those sayings in those players' head?
Yeah, I think it was just how I was raised. Ultra competitive. My parents kind of instilled something in me growing up, was going back to my childhood, was, hey, when you step on that field, you're going to be the most competitive player out there. You're going to be the toughest player out there, mentally and physically. I had coaches growing up that if you had a bad attitude, if you started pouting, straight to the bench. Like, you don't have time for that. And something I didn't say was, you got to be the best player on that field. No, that's not what I said. What my parents did was say, hey, you're going to be the toughest player on the field and the most competitive player on the field. That's two things you can control. You can't control your ability in a game, or your athletic ability. It's God-given. Like, we have no control of that, but that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, control what you can control. And those are two things you can control.
Yes, and those things make it happen. And when we said it's Superior, I brought up a fella, and you instantly, just like that, was like, man, that's like my hero. It's Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
And his dad pushed him the same way as your parents push you. Why do you think, one, that we should bond and should be like-minded like Tim? And why does Tim impact you so much with his life and how vocal he is about Christianity and things?
Yeah, I think something that was, drew me to Tim Tebow was, growing up in this church, growing up a Christian, you didn't see very many guys, in front of a public's view and the public's eye, taking a knee and praying on the field, or writing Bible verses, John 3:16, on his eye black. And I've read all of his books, and he was so impactful because he played the game better than anybody else. And here's this guy that's a superhero type deal to most people watching, larger than life figure, and he's at the same time he's taking a knee praying on the field, and
he's humble.
He's a great leader. That's something. He was a vocal leader, and he didn't do it by cussing at teammates or yelling at guys or telling guys they got to play better. No, I remember one of my favorite interviews he did was he was actually in tears after one of the games they lost, and he instantly said, he didn't talk about the team. He said, I have to be better. I have to be a better player. I have to be a better leader. And,
never pointed the finger.
Never pointed a finger at anybody else. And he had that, held himself accountable. And I think that's something that's important for younger guys growing up is watching guys like him be that leader. And, he's not selfish. He's placing the needs of the team above his own. Mm-hmm. That's something we talked about a lot on this past year's team. And I think that's why we were so successful. You're putting the needs of the team above your own. And a lot of people don't know how to do that in today's society. And what that just boils down to is, hey, whatever I'm asked to do, I'm going to do it. Right. I'm not going to do it, dragging my head, pouting and stuff. No, I'm going to do it 100%. Whether you need me to be the best teammate in the dugout or the best player on the field, it doesn't matter. I'm going to place the needs of the team above my own. Yeah. And that translates straight into life.
And I didn't see, now that you say that, I didn't see one LSU player. I got to commend that coach. Like, not one LSU player focused on self. Not one. You could look around that field. Every one of them was focused on the other ones.
Guys, honestly, with last year's team, and I believed it, not everybody in our dugout believed it. They wanted, no matter who it was, they wanted that other person to have just as much success as they wanted themselves to have. Yeah. And they were pulling for, something that Coach talked about was being your teammates' biggest cheerleaders.
Wow.
Like, you think about cheerleaders, rah-rah, happy,
mm-hmm.
And that's what it was. Like, it's so powerful when you have your own teammates pulling for you harder than anybody else and wanting you to be successful. Everybody remembers on a team they were on, and they had that one guy dragging the whole team down,
mm-hmm.
so focused on himself and didn't care about the other team. But when you have 40-something guys invested like that, and with that same mentality throughout the dugout, it's powerful, man. It's there's a reason we won it this year. It wasn't by coincidence. It wasn't an accident. It was just meant to be that way. All the build up
from that,
yeah,
and keeping that and cultivating that and protecting that most of all, so that the next guys that come up, that same culture is sitting there. It's a sustainable culture because it's wonderful. It's giving life. It's serving. So we're gonna come back to this because the most important part was how you transitioned in that third game, and I can't think of a better person to leave off on this episode than with Tim Tebow. What you thought about him?
Yeah.
How he influenced you. How you guys serve each other. How every LSU baseball player is out there serving each other. And really, I see that through a lot of their athletics, but not near as much as I saw it on that baseball team. So we're going to come back and finish up in that third game in the next episode. So Thank you for watching today. I hope it has impacted you. I hope you're not mad at me for stopping Alex right here and going into that third game with Florida. You're going to see all of this come together. Come back to the next episode and you're going to see how it didn't just happen in his 20s. It started happening when he was 2, 3, 4, 5 years old with the people he surrounded himself with. And he's understanding now, more than most people I sit with, especially younger people, that it takes a like-minded individual and it takes surrounding yourself with other like-minded individuals to be successful. But you have to be a servant. Thanks for watching today. We'll pick right back up on our next episode. You don't want to miss that going into that third game. If this episode has impacted you, please share it on all social media platforms to help impact others. We're on all podcast platforms. So with that said, let's get out there and serve someone today so we can all get better together.